foremost, whoever is conscious, mindful of Allah, Allah will make a way out for them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will provide for them from places that they would have never imagined. وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. And if you have trust in Allah, فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ, then He is enough for you. He is sufficient for you. And I want you to think about each one of them through the lens of this ayah before you think about it for yourself. And one of the incredible things about the story of Ibrahim, Hajar and Ismail was that what gave them comfort in all of their situations and their affairs was not that Hajar could look out the corner of her eye and say, well, there are two hills over there, and if I run between them and shout loud enough, maybe someone will hear me. There looks like there could be a well that could one day be constructed over here. I think I heard that some people live close over there. That's not what gave Hajar. It wasn't the water out of the corner of her eye, or Ibrahim alayhi salam as he was walking away from them, or Ismail alayhi salam. Ismail alayhi salam was not looking for the quickest exit if his father decides to actually proceed with the sacrifice. What was giving them all a sense of contentment was what? Allah's command. Allah never commands us to do something except that Allah intends good for us. Allah never commands us to do something except that Allah intends good for us. And the closer we are to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even when it becomes the most difficult to apply those commands, the more blessing we're going to find in our lives. And so the answer of Ibrahim alayhi salam was, Allah tells him, Aslam. He's the one receiving divine revelation. Submit, Aslam to Rabbil Alameen. Allah told me to do it, I'm going to do it, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of me. The answer of Hajar that gave her comfort was not, are you going to come back and check on us in a few months? Is something going to happen? Did Allah tell you that someone's going to come take care of us? The comfort of Hajar was, Allahu amaraka bihada. Did Allah command you to do it? If so, Allah is not going to abandon us. We'll be fine. Her comfort was that the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came with blessing. And the comfort of Ismail alayhi salam was what? Ya abati fa'al ma tu'mar. SubhanAllah, he didn't say to his father, do what you saw in the dream. He said to his father, do as you have been commanded to do. Because if Allah commanded you to do it, only good will come through it. Each one of them found comfort in the same thing. Not the circumstances, not that they could see the makhraja or where the risk would come from, not that they could see the way out or the way the sustenance would come, but they found comfort in knowing that Allah commanded it, and Allah would not command something except that Allah would bring about good in their lives. That's where they found it. And that's where they got their contentment from. And dear brothers and sisters, when do we find true tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? It's when we can't see the makhraja, we can't see the exit, and we can't see where the risk will come from, where the sustenance is going to come from. We have no clue, and we have to submit ourselves because nothing is making sense. The circumstances don't make sense. Everything is uncertain. When is this going to end? How am I going to do this? How is this going to come? I will remain dedicated and clinging towards that which I've been commanded to do, and I know that goodness will come as a result of that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not leave me in a place of destruction as a result of that. And you see that with each and every single one of them. Their comfort came from that. Their comfort came from that. Hajar had no idea. And by the way, you can go through the story of the verse with each one of them. But I want you to think, as Ibrahim alayhi salam was walking away from Hajar and Ismail, what was the conversation that he was having with Allah like? As Hajar would wait as the sun became hotter and her child became thirstier, what was the dua that was going on between her and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? As Ismail alayhi salam was being walked to the place of his sacrifice, what was the dua between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And then on top of that, dear brothers and sisters, Ibrahim alayhi salam, as he is about to sacrifice his son, he too has been sacrificed by his father, but he was sacrificed for false purposes and towards false gods and out of a sense of lowliness. He knows what it's like. As Ibrahim alayhi salam was walking away from Hajar, he knows what it's like to have people turn their backs on you. But with Ibrahim alayhi salam, he wasn't acting out of a lowly place or for lowly aims, nor was he saddened because he didn't trust the one whom he was acting for. He knew that Allah took care of him when he was thrown into the fire, and Allah would take care of Ismail alayhi salam, and Allah would take care of Hajar alayhi salam. And that's why the end of this verse is so beautiful. وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. Whoever has true trust in Allah, Allah is sufficient for them. They actually don't need to know where the exit is, and they don't need to know where the risk is going to come from. They're comforted with that. They're contented with that idea that Allah is going to be enough for me anyway. And what was the first dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam? Thrown into the fire that would keep him sustained through the heat of life. Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. Allah is enough for me. Go through the ayah with each one of them. Hajar. وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. The makhraja, Jibreel alayhi salam coming, striking the water. She never thought the Zamzam would come from the ground that way. She never thought a tribe would come and settle, a people would come and settle around her because of that. She could not have written her own story. Ismail could not have written his own story that he would be the ancestor of khayru khalqillah, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the best of Allah's creation. He could not have written his own story. And that's the point. You don't want to author your own story. You want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are comforted with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala authoring your story. You're good with that. Because hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. I trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so in that, and I'll conclude with this, every single one of these moments of uncertainty is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every single one of them. It's hard for us to see. It is hard for us to see. But every single one of them is a chance to learn that truth and that reality over and over and over again in our lives. So if we survive through this, we will look back on it and we'll say, remember those days? And we'll remember how the makhraj, the exit, was somewhere we never expected, and the risk came from places, the sustenance came from places that we never expected. But we turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with gratitude today. Alhamdulillah, that's the point. Let Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala author our story for us, and let's be content with that. And let's enjoy what we're learning along the way and express gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and let every single one of them be an affirmation of Allah's greatness and our inability sometimes to perceive it. And we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for each other. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst those that are grateful to Him in all circumstances, that see His greatness through all hardships, that see the blessings that are sometimes concealed even in the midst of devastating pandemics. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to lift the hardship from our brothers and sisters that are oppressed all over the world, that are suffering in ways that we have never suffered and we could never imagine suffering. We ask Allah to lift the oppression from our brothers and sisters around the world and make things easy for them and allow them to overcome their oppressors. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to unite us in this community and to unite us around the world, to unite our hearts in recognition of that truth and in recognition of the rights that each one of us has upon each other through that truth. Allahumma ameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een.